Okay, well, let's wait for the others.
All right, all right. Okay, so I think we are recording now, so I think we're official now. I can go ahead and make the official introduction. Um, Welcome everybody. Bonjour tout le monde. Bonsoir, I should say. Um, Welcome to another Bell AFPEC sessions. My name is Ronald Setut. Many of y'all know me as the co-founder of the Bell Initiative, which is a platform that focuses on empowering Haiti-based entrepreneurs through education and by connecting them to resources as well. So first, I want to acknowledge AFPEC, which is an entrepreneurial institution in Port-au-Prince. They have several different programs that are related to business and entrepreneurship. So a big shout out, Salwi. Actually, his name is Henry too, but President Henry over there at AFPEC. Awesome school that he has over there, really supporting entrepreneurship. And I am so glad that we have this partnership together to actually continue providing more education to entrepreneurs in Haiti and around the world. And then, of course, I also want to make sure that everybody knows that this is also powered by the Georgia Haitian American Chamber of Commerce, which is the parent organization of the Bell Initiative and program based here in Atlanta, Georgia. And then also Sase Business PAM, which is a business association based in Haiti. So if you are an entrepreneur, you're somebody that's looking to get into business or a professional, highly encourage you to join Sase Business PAM. Very great association to connect with entrepreneurs in Haiti, and not just in Haiti, actually in the US too, and in Canada. So you're going to go network. You want to make sure that si ou pas, même non Sase Business PAM, reach out to Carl Jean-Louis, who's the president, and he can definitely make sure that you have get some membership inside the Business PAM. And then, of course, I want to give a shout out to Brand Peel, who is responsible for a lot of our graphics that we have here with the Bell Initiative, with the flyer and all the advertisements that you see. So if you ever need any kind of marketing work done as far as social media, logo design, or even branding, which is their expertise, please go ahead and reach out to Dr. Edwin Magloire, who is the CEO of Brand Peel. So again, welcome everybody. Salut tout le monde. Salut tout le monde Haiti qui a regardé nos AFPEC. And right now, I want to make sure that we give the floor and much needed attention to this topic that's so big around the world, of course, but a lot of people still don't know. But we have an expert in the house today, Mr. Henry Noel Jr. Henry is the investment director at the Boston Impact Initiative and the managing director of the Haiti Impact Partners. So Henry, I'll let you introduce yourself. I don't want to spill too many beans, but go ahead, tell them a little bit about who you are.
Sure. Thank you for the introduction, and thank you everyone for attending. Ronald, this is great work that you're doing. Really, the idea of bringing the knowledge, bringing some expertise, or bringing you just information to people on this subject is extremely important, especially in the times that we're in right now. With the pandemic that hit small businesses and the world, it's very timely and very important. I did have a presentation, and in the first slide of my presentation, I do have some information on my background, but we'll just talk it through a little bit right now. Essentially, I've been in the industry for over 20 years, primarily raising capital for small businesses, working with entrepreneurs, working with angel investors, working with venture capital funds, large institutional investors, really making the marriages happen. So I have a lot of information, a lot of expertise in this area. One thing that I will tell you for sure is there's no silver bullets. Sometimes things work, sometimes they don't. There's an exception to every rule. It's as much art as it is science, but we're gonna try to get through some of this together and really start understanding what this is, how to best go about raising capital from US investors. And one thing that I'll say again before I let you turn the floor back to you, Ronald, is a lot of what I've been doing, especially recently, has been more on the impact investment front as opposed to just the investment front. So we'll delve into that a little bit further. And when I say impact investment, I'm looking at what else beyond just financial returns, what else does your business impact? What are the other opportunities that are coming about because of your business, whether social, whether environmental, whether on the social justice front. Some investors are very interested in that aspect, and so we'll touch on that a bit. But Ronald, I'll turn it back over to you. That's me in a nutshell.
All right. Thank you, Henry. So before we get started, I would just want to let everybody know, make sure you keep your microphones off. If you have a question, si vous avez une question, we're gonna first have Henry present for a few minutes, and then afterwards we'll open the floor for questions. And if you might have to leave be early, or if you're not comfortable with speaking over the microphone, you can actually type your question in the chat. And in the beginning, I'll make sure that I ask the question for you. Or si m'a dit dans le tout, si vous avez une question et puis vous pas trop à l'aise à utiliser le microphone là, vous mettez question dans le chat là, puis les Henry fini présentation li, n'a demandé question à vous. So keep your microphones on mute. And like I said, if you have any questions, raise your hand or go ahead and just type the question in the chat, and we'll allocate some time towards the end. So go ahead, the floor is yours, Henry. We can get the party started.
Let me just share my screen here.
Okay.
Okay. All right, so again, what we're talking about today is basically raising capital from US investors. This is a US centric, or US, as implied in the title, we're looking at it from a US perspective as an investor. So there will be some nuances that we can talk about definitely throughout the presentation. I talked a little bit about my background. Again, I've raised over half a billion dollars, $500 million in equity, debt, and everything in between for different investors, some small, some large, and from different types of investors. One of the things that will come up a few times in this presentation is understanding who your investor, your target investor is. That goes a very, very long way to being successful in raising your capital. So, the different types of investors, whether it's an angel investor or whether it's a large institutional investor, they're going to be looking at different types of opportunities. So knowing your investor is very important there. We will touch on that a little bit later on. Quickly on, I'm currently Director of Investments for Boston Impact Initiative, and that's an impact fund here in Boston, and we're investing in small businesses. And our particular focus is really looking at economic justice and how do we decrease the wealth gap here in the US, specifically in Boston. Beyond that, what I've done with Haiti VIP stands for Haiti Venture Impact Partners. That's a fund that I started, my partner Eli Lafortune and I started in 2015, really trying to raise capital to bring a fund, an investment fund, a venture capital fund to Haiti. There's been a lot of ups and downs in that, and right now we're not active with the fund yet due to a lot of the situations on the ground in Haiti, and we'll touch on that a little bit later, but that is something that we're actively looking at bringing back because it's a solution that's necessary. Access to capital is very necessary with all of the big opportunities that we see in Haiti. So Haiti VIP is something to look out for in the future. All right, so raising money. It really boils down to a few things. One, knowing your company, knowing and understanding the broader market, and knowing and understanding investors. That's, we boil it down to those three things. And what's interesting is that they're somewhat equal, but if you don't know your company, well, it's not going to work. You're not going to impress, or you're not going to get any even interest from investors. Your market is just as important, and knowing the market, the broader market environment also equally as important as knowing your company. Now, knowing your investors, well, you can build a company, but if you don't know your investors, you'll have a company that runs and you won't have access to the capital that you need to fuel it to have it grow. So each of these points is very important in your development, in your thought process as you're building your company. So we're going to go down and drill down into these a little bit more just to talk a little bit more about them specifically. Knowing your company. So in the very beginning, this is where you have the opportunity to share your passion with me, the investor. I want to know, why did you get into this? What did you see that was missing in the market that you decided you had the solution to, and your solution was better than other solutions that are currently in the market, or it wasn't being addressed in the market? And this is why you're doing this. Very, very important. A lot of times entrepreneurs don't spend enough time just getting the investor interested in the business, getting the investor to understand why this needs to be addressed, and having your passion shine through. If you're not excited about your business at this point, if you're sitting down and you're across from me or on the phone or whatever the case may be, and it doesn't come through, your excitement doesn't come through, well, then I'm not going to be excited either. This is where you shine as an entrepreneur. How did you come up with this idea? What sparked it in your mind? Now, one of the things I wanted to speak to with this, specifically with our entrepreneurs in Haiti, and you'll understand it when I say it, there are a lot of opportunities in Haiti. Pick one for our initial conversation. I've had a lot of situations where I've had an entrepreneur pitch 5 different ideas in 5 different companies in one seating. And it's, then I'm thinking, well, he's all over the place. So pick one, let's talk about that. Let's discuss it, let's develop it, let's understand it, and go from there. So tell me about your company. Knowing your company is very important, the origins of your company. If we move next, knowing your market. So all of these, of course, intertwine, but in knowing your market, I want you now to tell me specifically what makes your market and your business run. Your expertise here is what counts. You are teaching me. I'm a generalist. I could be a specialist in the market who knows everything about fintech, but most of the times, or in my case, I'm a generalist. You are the expert in your field. I want you to be able to tell me what makes this work, and from a lot of different perspectives. I want you to be able to tell me the high level. I want you to be able to drill down to the logistics and tell me exactly how you make $1 if you're in the business of making money. Who are your customers? Who are your partners? Who are potential partners? Who are your competitors? All of these things is key to knowing your business, understanding what it is that you're doing, and then that translates directly into knowing your numbers. I don't know if I've put it bold and bright enough for everyone to know that, but knowing your numbers is critical. And there, what I'm talking about is, do you have a business model? Is this business one that's going to be making money initially? Is that in your business model? If it's not, that's fine. Facebook didn't have a business model or a revenue model for quite some time. But if that's the case, you still have to understand the numbers behind it, right? You have to understand what's your cost for acquiring customers. How quickly are you acquiring customers? What's your growth rate? What you project it to be if you don't currently have one? How much money will you be spending on a monthly basis as you're growing the company? All of this information is extremely important, because you understanding your numbers conveys to me that you've done your homework and you understand what goes behind this. And now we can have a discussion, we can have a talk around some of the assumptions that go into your projections, into your model. So now we can talk about, well, Mr. Entrepreneur, you said you're going to grow at 10% per year, but in year 3, it's going to jump up to 50%. Why? How? Who are the customers? Is this priced right? If we did stress the price and drop the price, what would that do to your whole business plan? That's why I'm talking about knowing your numbers. It's real important for you to have your financial projections so you understand them fully. And now, as an investor, we can stress a lot of those things and we can start to develop what we think collectively are good assumptions to use and to really start understanding what the prospects for the business are. In that, I want to also know, in the knowing your numbers, what's the whole financial opportunity? How big can this thing get? How long does it take? Or if it's not something that's, traditional venture capital type investment, if it's something that's just going to grow slow and steady and small, I still am very interested in what are the numbers? When do we reach break even? Are we immediately at, how soon do we get to break even? And what's the growth behind that? What are the assumptions that we're using to get to some of those thoughts? All of this is real important. If we take a step back, so we've talked about understanding your company. We've talked about knowing your specific business market. Let's take a step back though and understand that it's important that you know what the larger environment is. What's going on globally in your space, in this industry? What are some of the things that are influencing that, whether other businesses, other opportunities, political situations, whatever the case may be? It's important that, again, you're the expert here and you're enlightening and teaching me. Now with Haiti specific information, again, you are the expert. You're on the ground. If you're in Haiti, you're on the ground and you know the situations, whether it's geopolitical tensions, whether it's economic stresses, whether it's stresses because of currency exchange, whether it's security concerns, operations concerns. We don't have electricity as regularly as you may in other situations. You're the expert on the ground and you are educating me as an investor on different things. Understand that as an investor, I should do my homework as well. I have to come to the table prepared and understand and know what the situation is on the ground. But you're going to add color, you're going to add depth, and you're going to tell me why this is an opportunity for your specific idea, or why you've done X, Y, and Z to mitigate that risk. So I have specific operational challenges in Haiti because where we are specifically, we don't have the necessary electricity all the time. Okay, well, you've known this. What have you done to mitigate that? What are you doing from a redundancy standpoint to make sure that if we have a challenge on this side, well, we can still take care of our customers because we have a backup site, or we have, our employees are somewhere else, or we have, contingencies. All of these things specifically to the country, specifically to the geography that you're working on, are important to me as an investor and for you as an entrepreneur to educate me on and bring me along on where the opportunity is, where the risks are, and how you're mitigating those risks. Again, what we're talking about here primarily is raising money from US investors. So not someone who's necessarily in Haiti all the time, someone from here who hears about Haiti, who knows Haiti, who understands the market somewhat, but is not on the ground like you are. So you have to be the one to share that with me. So that's knowing your market. The third factor that we talked about was knowing your target investor. And we're going to spend a little extra time here because I think this is extremely important. Investors are searching for you, just like you're searching for them. But if you're going to a large institutional investor and you're a startup company, you're in biotech and they're in fintech, you may not meet because, or you're going to them and you're not offering them what they're looking for. It's extremely important that people do their homework and understand what's the market that I'm serving, who are the investors who are looking in this space, who are the investors who are looking specifically at this industry, at this stage, at new entrepreneurs or seasoned entrepreneurs or whatever the case may be. And then very, very importantly, who are investors who are looking at Haiti and why? I will argue that an investor who is looking in Haiti or who's looking for opportunities in Haiti we've established they're very interested in your story. They're very interested in your numbers and the business model. But I'm going to add that that investor who's looking at Haiti specifically is going to be very, very interested in your impact. Because otherwise, why don't I go somewhere else where there's potentially less risk, whether it's geopolitical risk, whether it's currency risk, whether it's security risk, whatever the case may be. If I can get the same type of investment in a similar market with less risk, I'll go there. So if I'm looking at Haiti, then I'm looking at Haiti for a reason. I want, what does Haiti have that elsewhere may not? And I would argue that one of the big things there is investors who are looking at Haiti are looking for your impact as well. What kind of impact are you going to have on the environment? What kind of impact is your business having on society and social ills? Now, different investors will look at those things differently. Some of them are going to be impact first, finances second. Others will be finances first, but you have to have some impact. But I argue that, again, if an investor is looking at Haiti, he's interested in your impact story, so you better be ready to share it with him. You should have it available so that they are aware of what it is that your impact is. So just to give you a little bit of specifics on what it is I think that you need, that covers everything we talked about. When you're approaching an investor, you want to have a one-pager. That's your introductory document. That's basically that you're sending out to a wider market, that you're sending to different network contacts that you have. And that document is going to be really talking about, on a high level, very synthesized, what's your problem or the problem? What's your solution? What's the market? What's the opportunity? And what's your team? We want all of that in that one pager. And that one pager is going to tell us, okay, here are all the relevant facts and relevant information in a brief synopsis for you to take a look at. Mr. Investor, is this something that you could be interested in? Based on the one-pager response and their, you've gauged their level of interest, the next document that you have to have is an executive summary. That's going to be basically where the one-pager was obviously one page. Executive summary is going to be anywhere from 2 to 5 pages. I typically try to keep it within the 2 to 3 page realm. And that's going to be the same information in your one-pager, fleshed out a little bit more. But to that, we're going to add a very high-level financial projections. And also, I typically add a ask. What is it you're asking for as far as money? And what's the use for that money? So the asks and the uses of whatever you're the money that you're raising. So that's typically the executive summary. Beyond that, someone's interested, they really want more. The investment deck is something that's very important, I think. And what you're doing is you're walking someone through your investment deck and really drilling down a lot of the same information, but really drilling down a lot more on how we're going to do what we say we're going to do. How does sales and how does your sales strategy translate into that market share that you said that you can get? Or how does the work that you're doing actually translate into the impact that you said you're going to accomplish? So the investment deck is something that's, again, deeper material, typically 10 slides, 10 to 13 slides. Don't want it too much more than that we can get through in a presentation in about 30 minutes and then question and answers. Beyond that, I think, again, because of where we are talking about Haiti, one document that's very important that a lot of people don't have is an impact strategy document. This is 1 or 2 pages, and this is talking specifically to the impact. This is talking specifically to if the impact that you're doing is around food security, this is how we're ending a certain amount of hunger in a region. This is the strategy beyond or behind expanding the access to capital or expanding the access to accounts for this population, or expanding electricity to this population, whatever the case is. Your impact that you have here, or your impact that you have in your company, is highlighted here in this impact strategy. Now, I don't know if many of you are familiar with, or maybe the Sustainable Development Goals that were designed, or that were brought back around 2016, I believe, 2015 time period. Those Sustainable Development Goals are great in that they help a lot of us in the industry speak the same language as far as the impact we're trying to make. So it's wonderful if you can align your impact strategy document with the Sustainable Development Goals. And so this is the goal, this is the outcome, this is how we're going to reach the outcome. These are the inputs to us getting there. These are the outputs that we're measuring, and this is the outcome that we're going to get. Tell me about that impact strategy. That's very important because I'm an impact investor. If I'm not an impact investor, that may not be as important. But again, if I'm looking at Haiti, I think it's automatically defaulted that this is something that's important to me. And some of you who are looking at capital from different sources, including grant sources or not-for-profit sources that still want to return, this may be what you lead with, because they do want emphasis on that impact story. Lastly, your financial model. I want to see your projections. I want to see the assumptions that have gone into this. What makes this true, numbers-wise? How does your finances or your financial model match up with the story that you've told? How many widgets are you going to have to sell before you get break even, and before it takes off, and why will it take off? All of those things are very important. So these are the documents, the 5 documents that I think are critically important if you're going to be raising money from a US investor. Now, lastly, you need to get out there and build up your networks. A warm call, a warm introduction is always easier or better than a cold call. Being out there, working, being out there, being at the forefront of your industry, of your business, making connections, so that when someone thinks of, I'm thinking of drug discovery, just to pick something, or I'm thinking of telecom specifically, or a Cash App or something of the sort in Haiti, your name should come up in that conversation. And how does that happen? Because you're always in the conversations. You're in the circles where people are talking about that idea, about that topic. Your networks are branching out, your networks are expansive. And that's you building up your personal brand and building up your company brand, so that that network is now really starting to get out there, and the tentacles of the network are at a point where, as you're raising capital now, different people can touch different sources and different resources that they have, and different contacts that they may have. So that's the presentation I had for you. I'm very excited to take questions, and if you feel there's something I didn't cover or that you'd like to go a little deeper on, let's do it.
All right, thank you, Henny. Man, that you dropped so many gems. I started taking notes again. Just I think it's a lot of knowledge that you dropped, and I think there are definitely going to be a lot of questions. But before we start taking questions for the audience, everybody who does have questions, si nous gen question, nous met commencer à mettre dans chat là, or levez main nous et puis la question yo. But let me ask you this, Henry. When you think about a lot of the demographic that we're dealing with right now, especially, I believe most of the people that are on this call are based in Haiti. We do have some people, Dick, who I think are in Georgia, or some that are in the US, or maybe some from Canada. But when you think about a country like Haiti, a developing country, naturally, should they be leading with the impact aspect first? Is that something they should be thinking about? Because I know you said an investor that's looking in Haiti or interested in Haiti, they're probably focusing on the impact. So should that be one of the things that they're leading with when they're pitching or putting their looking at the executive summary?
So I want to say again, it depends on the investor that you're looking at specifically. So for example, if I'm an entrepreneur in Haiti, I have the impact story and my impact strategy ready.
Mm-hmm.
I have the business ready. We're always going to be leading with the business for the majority of investors.
Okay.
But if your investor, is a specific impact investor, everyone looking at Haiti is interested in impact, but this investor is particularly interested in impact first,
Mm-hmm.
then I might lead with that.
Gotcha.
I think that sometimes people get caught up in only doing impact and only talking about their impact and not having the real meat behind their business, not knowing their numbers or their business as well as they should, because it's so impactful. Well, it's so impactful, that's great, but you're not a not-for-profit. You're a business.
Right.
And I'm not a foundation giving grants. I'm an investor.
Mm-hmm.
So that side of the story needs to be as tight.
Really good point. That is a really good point. We have a question in the chat. Fred Alex said, do you have a list of website and companies where funds are available?
No, I do not. That's just the real answer. What I've always done, so again, with Haiti VIP, I was looking at investing in Haiti. In addition to that, I was looking at, or part of our mission is, how do we bring more investors to look at Haiti? So I wanted to bring other people to invest alongside with me. So part of the work that I was doing, or part of the work that I still am doing, is looking for investors who are open to Haiti as a geographic location. All of that I'm doing, and I would say to Fred, is through searches. Excuse me, I'm looking specifically for searching for impact investors in frontier markets, investors looking at the Caribbean specifically, investors who are in my space, but again, in my space that are looking outside of the US, because it doesn't make sense for me to call XYZ Ventures, who only invests in Chicago-based companies,
mm-hmm.
and I'm in Haiti. So that's where you have to do quite a bit of homework and quite a bit of searching, really. And there are, it's not as many, obviously, but there are companies, there are funds, there are groups that are looking for investments in frontier markets. And in that same sentence, don't forget about foundations and other organizations that are not for profit, who are looking at making investments through their program related investments. So look up PRI, PRI investors. That's program related investors. And what they are looking for is the same program that they have on the not-profit side that they're giving grants for. If they can accomplish some of those outcomes through a company that they can invest in, that's doing it on a for-profit model, some of them are more and more, they're looking at that. So look at PRI investors.
Good point. Let me ask you this, Henry. So I work with a lot of the entrepreneurs in Haiti, and one of the things, of course, one of the first things that they always say, most people say when I'm asking what they need or what they think they need is, of course, investment, right? Everybody says that, regardless of where you're Haiti, the US, wherever. I think that's everywhere.
Sure.
And you can talk a little bit about this. You don't have to go so deep into it, but what would be your response as far as a company or a startup who thinks they need investment? How do you know you actually need investment versus you actually just need to, find a few dollars to actually start? How can you tell the difference? I remember the first time we started the program, we had one gentleman who refused to do anything unless he got an investor. I'm like, you don't need an investor to start. Like, you can literally start. He had the resources, but he refused to start unless he had I think about $50,000. So how do you change someone's mind? I'm not going to say how do you change somebody's mindset, but how should somebody be thinking in terms of whether they need an investment or not? And let me say it in Creole just in case there's people who don't understand my question. I'll say it in Kringlish the best that I can. Moun yo ki pat kompon something Monday, but Monday Henry, comment connaît le business ou commencer un business or maybe ou déjà travail dans yon compagnie ou gain. Comment connaît si vous préparez pour yon investment? You know, quelques fois nous quoi nous besoin l'argent, nous quoi nous besoin un monde pour mettre I don't know $50,000 dans business nous, mais est-ce que nous business a préparé pour ça? Est-ce que nous nous structure business là dans une façon côté les cas, it can handle investors. So go ahead.
So a few things. We're going to start with can you take the money? Then we'll touch on how much money you need, and then third, how much does that cost you? So first, can you take the money? Is your business in a structure, a formal structure that an investor can invest in and you can take that money? Do you have the formal business structure? Whether here it's incorporation, are you a company that can have dual, where you're in both Haiti and in the US? In Haiti, so here it's an incorporation or LLC or something of that nature. In Haiti, it's just my mind went blank on the type of institution, but
SA and
yes, SA, exactly. Société Anonyme. So are you in a structure where you can take the money? That's one. Two, do you have the necessary controls that I'm going to feel comfortable giving you the money? Do you have a board of directors? Do you have people who are going to be able to help me feel secure about giving you the money, a proper accounting system, etc. That's one, that's infrastructure. Secondly, do you need the money? Do you need the money comes down to you, where we talked about earlier, you're knowing your numbers. Your numbers are going to tell you how much you need for startup costs. You're going to have to be able to tell me specifically what you're going to need, what you're going to use the money for, and how much exactly you need. And there may be some things that you can or cannot defend. Lastly, which ties into do you need the money, is how much does money cost you? Investors are expensive. Debt is the least, well, grants is the least expensive. Debt, you're paying, whatever percentage, you're paying 5%, 10%, 15% on that debt. Equity investor is the most expensive. It doesn't feel like it, but you're actually going into a partnership with someone and they're there for the upside, and equity investors are looking to get multiples of their money back. So the longer you can have your company working with the money that you have generating organically, or with money that you can pull from small sources, and get that further along from a startup all the way, as far as you can go, the less you're going to give up. Now it's a dance, because sometimes it's worth, early on giving up a lot because the pie is that much bigger. That's not the case with a lot of people though. A lot of times it's really, how do I get this minimal viable product ready and marketable and able to show people, and then raise a little bit of money around that. And then, I get to this next milestone, and then the next milestone. And that's how I'm raising the money, and that's how I'm going.
Wow. Yeah, that's some really, I'm glad you put that in perspective, because that's something I think a lot of people don't realize. Even the aspect of when you just say the idea that investors are the most expensive, right? That's something we don't naturally think about. Naturally, when somebody says, I need an investor, they generalize it and they just think, well, somebody's just going to lend me the money and I'm just going to relax and I can just cruise on highs and figure it out along the way. But I'm assuming, with investors, naturally, it's a lot more pressure.
Absolutely. And the thing is, as an investor, I want to invest at the point where there's something happening soon. My investment is not going to carry you day to day. My investment is going to make this happen, is going to make, an inflection point. I'm investing at a strategic time period where, because of my investment, you're able to take advantage of this opportunity, and immediately the value goes up.
Yeah.
That's what I'm looking for as an investor. And that value going up, if I'm an equity investor, I'm looking for a decent size return.
Mm-hmm.
Much more than 5%, much more than the 10% as a debt investor.
Wow. Okay. Couple of questions in the chat. We have one from Dr. Edwin Magloire. Welcome, Edwin. Edwin says, hello and thank you for the talk. My question, with Haiti's huge cultural potential and the power of digital, what is your advice for anyone in the creative industry?
So you're right from the standpoint of cultural potential, huge. And I don't know how else to say this, so I'll just say that we, in general, Haiti, Caribbean, Black, we are very much on a lot of people's minds right now, and we are in vogue. And right now, we want to take advantage of all of our cultural assets, to put it that way. Someone in the creative industry, it always comes down to what is it that you're trying to solve, whether it's a matter of lack of people understanding who we are, what our market is, or what you have to offer, or something of that nature. What is it that you have, and how is it that you're going to show me as an investor that this is something that that there's a business behind this?
Awesome. I hope that answered the question, Edwin. Next question is from Iris, Obed Iris. He says, is it possible to have a kind of all-purpose pitch, just in case we are misinformed about the type of investor we are talking to?
I like the question. And the answer is yes, but you have backup. You have everything else on backup. I have an investor pitch that's more targeted on my impact. And throughout as we're having this conversation with this investor, I'm understanding and I'm seeing that they're interested in the impact, but they really want to drill down a lot more. Hey, I have that. Here you go. It's ready. It's on deck. Or vice versa. I'm talking to somebody, and here's my pitch deck, and the financials are tight and everything else is good. And well, what about that impact? I have that. Here it is. It's preparation. You need to be prepared for the opportunity. And all the documents that I said before, those 5 documents, you mentioned all-purpose pitch. I think that if you're pitching verbally, it is really where you're hitting on the different points.
Yeah.
And then when you have the documents, you have that as backup that, oh yes, here's something that goes into more depth on our impact that you touched on, Mr. Investor. Here's that document that will tell you in a lot more detail how we see the world, how we see addressing this market, and how our solution is going to help X, Y, Z happen. But in your pitch, you're talking about all the aspects.
In those documents, let's say you're in a situation where the investor is going to receive the document first. Should that document lay out everything, or should you leave something in mind, hold some things back so you can have the opportunity to pitch and explain in more detail, or leave them wanting more?
That's a very, very tough question. And the reason I say that is because as an entrepreneur, you want to get everything out there, and you want, but I don't know if I'm going to get a chance to see this investor again, if I'm going to have another chance to pitch. The answer is you want to put your best foot forward, but that doesn't mean everything. That doesn't mean overloading them with stuff, because sometimes that could just, push them back. It does mean, yeah, I really am interested in this investor. They've shown an interest. Here's my executive summary. I have this deep, pitch behind me, but if they're interested in that executive summary, then they'll ask. They'll take another meeting. They'll go further. You don't want to start off with here's everything I have, because they're not going to read it anyway. I'm inundated. I'm over. It's too much. So let's let's hold hands, let's fall in love first, and then we can, go down the cycles.
Okay, okay. Before we take this next question from Raoul, John, or pas connait si gen moun la nan aspect, est-ce que gen question from ken moun nan aspect? I don't know if John is here.
Sure.
Hello, hello.
Yes, I just have a question.
Sure, who is this? Kerms. Okay, go ahead, Kerms.
Yeah, I know, but let me say hi to everybody. I know you are looking for the people can help you to get investor to come in Haiti who are looking an impact. So I want to ask you a question, Grant. You don't know too much about grants, how help someone who really want to go to the investment just to really make just improve the life of the people, rather just
Sure.
to be able to create and services that can improve the life of the people already. So how create a network that can bring to the people who want to just to services to improve the life of the people in Haiti. Let me give you an example. I want to do something in the area. Why is to improving in Haiti? How is just to make ready for rent and my what using rent and improve the life of the people over there.
Okay, so
So how we can help me?
so I
Hello?
yes, so let me answer and see if I
Mhm.
get your question correctly, and if I don't, please, I'll give you time to ask to clarify. What I think I'm hearing is you're looking at a company that is doing a lot of impact or very impact focused on improving the lives of people, and the primary source is going to be grant dollars.
Yes.
And in Haiti, this is definitely something that's very, very, common, and is the case a lot of times where I've talked to a lot of entrepreneurs around this specifically. Are you a for-profit business or are you a not-for-profit business? And let me go beyond that and say, a model that works is companies who start off as a not-for-profit and are primarily doing impact, and they're trying to understand, is there a business model in here that I can develop so that I'm no longer just a not-for-profit, because now I do have some earned income stream. And at that point, we can now say, okay, well, we're moving over from that not-for-profit, or we have a sister organization, two organizations working together for the same objective, that's a for-profit arm and another one's a not-for-profit arm. One interesting concept that I really want you to understand is in the impact space with PRI, program-related investors, or other firms and other investors, foundations and the like, there is a blended capital structure, which is blended capital means that I'm getting a loan from this guy, I'm getting equity from another one, and I'm getting grant from a third party. All of them together, all of them for the same company, and they're working together. And you, the entrepreneur, are the one orchestrating that. So you're telling the grant provider, I need X amount of dollars from you. Let's say $50,000 from you, and that $50,000, what we're trying to do is unlock $100,000 of investor money. And you tell the investor, Mr. Investor, if you give me $100,000, if you invest $100,000, here's why it makes business sense, but that's going to help unlock this $50,000 from grant money. So your money goes a lot further, Mr. Investor, because now it's multiplied by that, with that $50,000. So because of that blended strategy, now we're able to do a bigger impact. And so that's something I want you to start thinking of from the standpoint of a company that does mostly impact and less on the financial side. Really try to understand what's the business opportunities, business models that we can put into that. And then beyond that, let's look at pooling those investors together and having one unlock the other.
Okay.
Thank you, Kerms. Thank you, Kerms. We have another question from Ra. I'm sorry. Did you have anything else, Kerms?
No, and if you have enough space, just come back just to make a.
Okay, we'll do that. So, question from Raul in the chat. Raul says, thank you for the presentation. How do Haitian investors feel about funding software products that are capitalized first on getting a great amount of customers before figuring out a profitable revenue model?
Okay, so I'm going to answer that question not by saying how do Haitian investors feel. So we're talking about investors in general. That is something that's done in the industry. That's the VC model. That we're going to figure out the revenue model later on, but in the beginning, what we're doing is we're building out this wonderful platform and attracting. So in that case, what we're looking for as investors, what's your growth? How quickly are you growing? Is this something that has the hockey stick projections and trajectory? What's the size of the market? People used to use used to look at metrics like, are your systems crashing from all of the people who are jumping on all of a sudden? Is it that type of rapid growth where you need capital to really build out that because so many people, so many customers are coming in there? What are your cost numbers? What is the cost of getting each of those new customers? And what's the cost of delivering that service or that platform, of development for that platform? At what stage is that platform? Do we have a workable prototype? Is that something that is going to come later on in later milestones? How much more investment is going to go into that? So those are all questions that we're looking at for the type of business where, and it's a legitimate business where you don't have any revenues now. And we're going to figure out that revenue model later. But I can tell you that there's a lot more work that could go, or not a lot more work, but there's work that goes into showing an investor why I'm going to invest in this, where right now it's only red, it's only costs. Revenues are down a lot, and we don't even know where those are coming from. You're going to really have a lot to, there's a lot of weight to show me how that's going to, where that's going to start making money down the line, and how quickly you're growing that business, how quickly you're acquiring those customers, how critical is this need that you're providing, how critical is that, how big is that niche, and what are the barriers that you have identified, or that you have, that because this is such a big and booming market, that one of the other big guys in the space is going to say, hey, look at all the movement over there, I'm just going to start doing that. Mm-hmm. What are the barriers to protect that business? All of those things are key. All those things, whether it's intellectual, proprietary stuff, IP, or whatever the case may be. That's all these things. Questions are questions that an investor is going to have.
Thank you. Henry, before we continue on, it's 3 o'clock. I want to acknowledge that, and I want to make sure that I do see we have a few more questions in the chat. I just want to make sure that you don't have to go right now. I know you're super busy, but are we good to take a few more questions?
We're good. We're good.
All right, cool. All right. So Raul, I hope that answered your question. There is a question from our friend Dick, who is in Georgia as well. He says, can you provide some ideas on how to build your network?
You got to put the work in. Building your network is simply putting the work in. I'm not on Facebook. I have a very small footprint in Facebook, and it's primarily just friends and people like that. But I have a presence on Twitter, a business presence. I definitely have a business presence on LinkedIn, and I make it my business, or I pay specific attention to reaching out to different people and looking at hey, I came across this person. This looks interesting. Who wrote it? Who's talking about it? Or who are they talking about? Or this person's in this space similar to mine. Do I reach out to them directly? Do I look at some of their work? It really is a matter of, what are the organizations that are in your space that are worth joining, so that you're part of that conversation. It's hard being part of a lot of conversations, but the point is that eventually you're going to start leading some of those conversations, and you will be known for, the one person who knows. Here's a better example. I remember, this is back in the 80s, dating myself a little bit here, but in the late 80s, I remember Bloomberg. Michael Bloomberg said, I'm not the best at financial data. I'm not the best at tech and information gathering. But where those two meet, there's no one better than me. And that's how he, with the Bloomberg machine and et cetera, and the rest is history. So what's your expertise, or what's the area that you want to develop the most? Even if it is, the one person who knows everything about electricity in, Grand Rivière is me. If anybody comes to Grand Rivière and wants to know about electricity or whatever the case may be, immediately people are going to say, oh, you need to talk to so-and-so. You need to talk to so-and-so. Mm-hmm. Develop that kind of network, because that's what's going to expand, and that's what's going to help you with investors and everything else.
That's a good point, Henry. Let me expand on his question a little bit more. Mm-hmm. As far as, and I guess maybe, I think you hit it very well, but let me generalize it just a little bit more, I guess, for those people who may just be starting out, or maybe the younger generation who might be, we are inside of social media. Our word, the word is digital. That's right. Yes. Are you able to find these people on social media? Do they respond? Should that be the primary way? Is that even, an avenue we should consider? Or what are some other avenues that we should, think about? We can't network anymore much physically, but, is there a way to do that on social media?
So I think that, well, as for me, the answer, first of all, is definitely yes. I enjoy having a young person who's prepared, who's not asking me what's finance, but who's prepared, contacting me on LinkedIn and saying, and not just sending a request to connect and not writing anything, but in your request to connect, one sentence on who you are and why you want to connect with me. And anyone who's been at this for a while wants to empower what they've learned, or should. The majority of people, we want to share. I want to share it with younger people. So absolutely reach out to people. Hey, would like to have an exploratory 15-minute conversation with you. Now, keep in mind, when you reach out to me and you want to have a quick conversation, I'm busy. I'm doing a lot of things. So keep in mind that we're starting a relationship. Let's have a 15, 20-minute conversation and run with that. Use me as a resource every now and then. Don't assume that now we're going to be on the phone an hour every week. That's asking a lot.
All right. Thanks for that. The next question is from Dr. Magbar again. He wants to expound on, his question was answered as it was asked partially. So well, this is him speaking. So I'll expand. How can a graphic design firm impress an investor when the mission is to, how can a graphic design firm impress an investor when the mission is to elevate Haitian brands and make them more competitive on the local and global markets through the power of marketing strategy and branding?
So that's really going to be, I think, a body of work. You know, what have you done? Who are you working for? Who are you working with? Who are your customers? Your current Haitian customers, and if you're doing, and you know, for any international customers who want Haiti content, you know, have you done anything of that nature? What do you have? And showing me what you've done. As an investor, and you're talking about showcase, basically as an investor, I want you to showcase your work. Therefore, I can see not only the quality of your work, but I can see that others are using you and you have a pipeline of business. And that's what I'm looking for. I'm looking at, you know, what's that growth of that pipeline of business? Why is that business going to continue? Why is that business going to prosper based on the work that you've done? So that's really how I would answer that.
Awesome. Thank you for that question, Edwin. Let me just double check, make sure we're not missing anybody on social media. I think we had a couple of people watching there. Okay, I don't see anything. So I want to go over these 5 documents one more time to make sure that, you know, we have it right as far as what entrepreneurs or those working on projects need in terms of presenting to an investor, right? I wrote down you have a 1-pager, an executive summary, investment deck, and an impact strategy model. And I think I left one off, the financial model, if I'm correct.
Right, financial projection. And to that, I want to let everyone know, and I'm giving you a little bit of work here, Ronald. Sorry about this.
Oh,
but
man.
I you know, the presentation is available. You know, if you want to make that available to whoever contacts, or whoever, you know, through whatever channels, that's fine.
Sure.
In addition to that, there's a toolkit module from USB for social investments that I thought was very, very helpful. And it's a great guide for someone who wants to put together a impact strategy document. So if you could share that as well, make that available, that'd be wonderful.
Yes, please share it with me. Everybody who did register, I'll definitely share that with you if you did register online. If not, we'll go ahead and post it on the website if you don't mind. People just kind of register and then it'll automatically send them a link to that. Any more questions? Any more questions from the audience? Raise your hand, or you can unmute yourselves at this point and just ask your question. Okay.
Quick question. Just one question, please.
Go ahead, Felix.
I came in late, so I kind of missed your presentation, Noel, and I plan on at least touch base with you, hopefully. Is that thing recorded, or can I play it back?
Yeah, it's recorded. So Felix, good question. It is recorded. We do have it on Facebook as well, so you will be able to rewatch.
Okay.
And follow, of course, follow our YouTube channel, and you'll see it there too.
All right. And with that document you were saying, I did not get a chance to register, but how would I be able to get that document from the USB?
Sure. So I'll go ahead and put an email address into the chat, and then you can just send us an email, and I'll make sure we get that over to you.
Okay, I appreciate it.
info@bellinitiative.com.
Okay.
Okay, thanks, Felix. Thanks for joining in.
I just want to go back a little bit deeper. Just a review about the strategy.
Sorry, looks like we have some. Marie, can you mute yourself? I'll mute it. All right, go ahead, Grams.
Yes, about the impact is talking about the social entrepreneur. Do you mean you have a list of the social entrepreneur that you out, or can you repeat that? I don't know. Give me more information about this, or some people I can with.
Okay. You want to go ahead?
I think you're referring to the document that I mentioned for the UBS toolkit, and what it is it's basically showing how to put together the type of strategy, the type of impact strategy that you have, and really highlight that for investors. And for a social entrepreneur, it's very good because, again, we're talking about investments. We're not only talking about grants, and grants isn't even the focus. The focus is investments. So you really want to have your investors seeing the impact that you're doing from an investment standpoint. And I think that the toolkit that's available, that Ronald will make available, goes a long way in helping you shape that picture.
Good. Thank you for the question, Kerms. We'll take a last question from the audience, from LAC Training. Good question. What is the best practice for evaluating sweat equity?
Wow. Okay, so now we're getting in a different space. So let's talk about sweat equity in two ways. We're going to talk about sweat equity in what you've done so far up to the business, getting the business to where it is now. And then we're going to talk about sweat equity going forward. Sweat equity going forward, let's start there. This is the business, this is your baby, this is what you've done, this is what you want, this is what you're growing. As an investor, I am not very, very excited or excited at all about your startup or your company that you've just done, and in your projections, you have a $150,000 salary for yourself and for the next two executives as well. It's not realistic in many cases. Sometimes it happens, but it's not something I'm interested in. I want to see it where you have what you need to survive. Absolutely. You have a little bit more than that possibly, but we're building, as an equity investor, we're looking to build this together, and we're looking to properly value the company and properly and give you the right amount to grow that company and to incentivize other people to come on. And that may be where now we develop an equity pool so that your new employees have some ownership in the company as well. Very interested in that, very important. But let's look at the continued sweat equity when you're showing me a plan. Beyond that, sweat equity that you've put in. So now we're talking about what are we valuing the company at? There's so many things that go into valuation of a company. That's a whole other, 2-hour topic. But I'll just say that it's to a large extent, and it's a harsh statement, to a large extent, it's a sunk cost. You've put that in there. And I'm not going to say, okay, well, I'm going to pay you, absolutely not, for past work that you, past time that you put into this. And if I value your company based on your revenues or based on things of that nature, then wherever those numbers come out, you might get a little bit of a premium for a strong team, strong people around it. You might get some premium for where it is, because understand that the value that we're coming up to, if it's, let's say, $1 million value, $2 million value, whatever the case is, that value already takes into account your sweat equity, because that's why the company is at this point, because of where you brought it. I'm not going to give you something on top of where we think that the company is because of the work that you did. It's a harsh statement for entrepreneurs, but it's the reality of it.
Right, right. Yeah, great answer, and I thank you for that that question, LAC training. That might be something that something that a lot of entrepreneurs are probably already thinking in their mind, that somebody's probably going to pay them already for the work that they've already put in.
Right.
So this will be the last question I want to ask you, Henry. We talked a lot about the documents and the technicalities and all of these things that go into attracting an investor or someone like you. Where does the character of the person and the leadership of the individual or team come into play? How important is that? And even if let's say my financials are great, it's a great company or service or product that we're providing, and there maybe I have some questionable things about my character. Or how much do you look into? Do you even care about my attitude problem, or that I don't take? I dislike authority. I really don't like listening to people. As long as I'm giving you money, does that even matter? What my character is like?
Character matters in spades. Absolutely. We don't have to be best friends. We don't have to, really. What I need from a character perspective is I need you to be a person of your word. I need you to be an upstanding person that is respect worthy and that gives respect, and to be a person of integrity. And one of the, there's not many things that will determine success of a business. One of the through lines in a lot of different companies that are successful, whether it's raising capital or just successful in general, is the integrity and the character of the people at the top. Granted, you have a lot of, you have somewhere the person's a terrible person and they make it anyway. Okay, I don't want to invest in you. I'm not going to be partnering with you because we're entering into a partnership. We're entering into a marriage. I mean, as an investor, we're getting into this on a long-term basis, and we have to be able to work together, and you have to be coachable, and you have to be, especially for an investor like me, where we want to be very, very hands-on. We want to be very, very much in the weeds with you, working things out. It matters. If we can't work together, then this is going to be a headache for the next 10 years. I don't want that. I'm not going to sign up for that.
Right. Okay, that makes sense. So yeah, guys, that's very important. I think you hit it right on the head. I think it also, like I said, it depends on who's the investor, right? When we're dealing with you, you don't want to deal with the headache of somebody who's just, not going to listen to you or not even going to work with you for the next 10 years. Right. Whereas there might be somebody out there who's like, well, just make me my money and you can talk all the trash you want, right? But I mean, naturally, I ideally think that, whoever is investing in your company or whichever company is doing that, there is some level of compromise, or you have to work together with that individual or that person or that company or firm to actually help them achieve their goal. So I think that's something I think a lot of people, from what I've seen or that I run into, might have a misconception about. They typically look at it as, well, somebody's just giving me money and I'm going to run the business from day-to-day operations, and they might check in on me. Every day.
That's not the type of relationship that works well, in my opinion, or the type of relationship that I would be interested in, or many investors would be interested in. It really is where, because, if you have the attitude of give me the money and go home, or, leave me alone, you get money somewhere else.
All right. So, Henry, I know you work at the Boston Impact Initiative.
Yes.
That is, you are focused mainly in that Boston area, but you also have Haiti Impact Ventures. when when you all are ready to actually start investing in Haiti, how can entrepreneurs reach out to you? Is there a page they can follow on social media to kind of stay in touch with you if they want to ask you questions or see what you all have going on?
So they can find me on Twitter. You can find me on LinkedIn. Beyond those two, I don't do much more social media. With Haiti VIP, it is dormant right now. So there's not much happening there. I regret to say that. Every time I say that, it hurts because that's where, a lot of passion is for me is I see the opportunity in Haiti. I see the entrepreneurs. I've seen their stories. I've spoken to so many and I'm ready. The country wasn't ready. Whether, there was a lot of different timing issues. But it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen. And we're really gonna look at it again, maybe in about 2 years, having a fund where we can actually invest in companies in Haiti. So that's going to come back. But in the meantime, build out that network. This is a relationship business. Let's start a relationship. Let's have a conversation. Again, reach out to me on Twitter, reach out to me on LinkedIn. It's my name, Henry Noel Jr. on both of them. And, looking forward to, having conversations with people.
Okay. And there are people inbox, man, they direct DMing me like, Ronald, can I please ask one more question?
We'll do
I'm
2
feeling
more.
guilty for saying no.
We'll do 2 more.
2 more? All right. Henry is giving you all grace because I was about to say no. All right. So,
Ronald, don't say no to my question, please.
all right. So let me take care of. Let me ask Jean Benice's question. He asks, "What is your point of view on banks, investors, and so which
very important
to the informal sector in Haiti?"
Very important. So informal sector, I can't talk much about as far as borrowing money. Sometimes you do what you have to do to get money, and I can't talk more about that. I don't know, and it may be very bad situations, and we'll leave that at that. On banks here, but especially in Haiti, most of the time require more than investors have as far as lending. They're supposed to be in the lending game. They're supposed to be in the providing access to capital game. They don't. They're holding on to the money, and only certain people can borrow money. Only certain people can start businesses, etc. So what you should be looking for from investors is, how do I use investment dollars, whether it starts out as grant investors, whether it starts out as program related investors, whether it starts out as investors just investors in general, to get to a point where I am bankable, where I am bank ready. Because remember, I said that investors cost. They're expensive. Mm-hmm. Equity investment's expensive. If I get a bank loan at 10% versus an equity investor who's expecting 45% return, I may not be able to get the bank loan right now, but later on, as I use the other investor to grow my business, to get more, to have my business develop and be more of a going concern, have more opportunities, then later on, banks may be more of an option for me. That's here. In Haiti, maybe not, because banks are very, very tight with the money in Haiti. So.
Okay, thanks for that. And Obed, Alice, I will give you the last question. You can go ahead and unmute yourself and take it away.
Hold on. Well, I said it on the chat. Anyway, let me read it. I was asking if there is a right dosage between passion and competence. I mean, what do we have to show most in front of an investor? What would they want to see more in us? Like, being so competent, there is a risk to look boring, but being too passionate, I think there's a risk also to look like, well, you don't really master what you're saying. So is there a right dosage between these two in front of an investor?
Aris, I would take I would push back a little bit on your question and say that you can be very, very passionate and know your stuff. And if all they're seeing is the passion, then maybe you don't have the competence behind it. And if you do have the competence behind it, then that should show up when, you know, when questions are asked. I don't think, and when I say passionate, you're not standing on the chair and, you know, rah rah and jumping up and down, but the passion shows through. It comes through as far as why you believe what you believe, how you believe that this company is going to help, and how it's doing what it's doing. And all of that is passion, and all of that is competence if what you're saying is backed by something. If it's not just, you know, things you're pulling out of the air. If what I'm talking about is actuality, if I'm saying, and I believe that you're the business with the book packs, if I'm not correct, if I'm not mistaken, with
Yeah, you're right.
recycled.
The business with plastics, yeah.
Right. So if you're talking about that and you're telling me about, you know, all the impact that it has, and you're telling me, and, you know, if I ask about the financials, well, you know how many you need to break even, you know how much you have to cost, how much you can, what the market will bear, you know who the potential partners are, and you're working on partnerships to have more distribution. All of those things show the competence. But at the same time, the passion comes through by your level of preparedness and your level of why I'm doing what I'm doing. It's interesting. I had a conversation with an entrepreneur just 3 days ago for something related here in Boston, and the whole time he was talking, there was no excitement in his voice, no excitement in what he was saying, none at all. And what I'm thinking is, if you're not excited about it, how can I be excited about it? You're the one who has to bring that, you know, show me why, bring that to me, and I'll be excited about it. And at the same time, was he competent? Yes, but his lack of passion made me now question his competence. So I don't think it's a trade-off. I really don't think it's a trade-off. I think that it's a matter of being prepared.
Okay.
Awesome. Okay, I think that was a great way to leave off. There is another question, but we're gonna talk about that off camera, Ken, because I know you gotta go. What's one thing that you want to leave everybody with before we close out? If you had to leave something with the group, with everybody who's seeking investment, looking at potentially getting some investment in the future, or connecting with investors, what would you want to leave them with?
Don't take no personally. You're going to hear it a lot. In some cases, it's warranted. In some cases, it would have been a great fit and they just can't see it. Don't take it personally. Stay out there and keep doing what you're doing. And what's hard is you need money. You see, you've identified why you need the money to continue growing. The investor can't see it. You have to continue working on your business and getting through however you get through, while you're still trying to show new investors or other people or the same investors why it is that they should invest. You can't take no personally. You have to persevere. Your job is the hard one. My job as the investor is nothing compared to yours. Your job is the hard one, and don't take no personally and continue to persevere, because that's what's going to get you where you need to go, and eventually someone will say yes. I tell people all the time, looking at investments in the past, and I was never in this position, but if I were a VC, I would have invested in Google and I'd have made a killing on that. I saw it very early. I would have missed the boat totally on Facebook. Totally. I just couldn't see it and I would have missed it. I would have gotten Amazon, even though they didn't have revenues for a long time. I would have gotten them. Some investors will see it, some investors won't. That doesn't mean that what you're doing is wrong. Understand what you're doing, understand the assumptions behind it, and what, you know, how you're working the business, and stay true to it.
Thank you so much, Henry. Thank you. Guys, if you need to reach out to Henry or want to stay in touch with him, or just follow his post or what he likes on social media, definitely follow him on Twitter at Henry Noel Jr. That's what it is on Twitter. I'm not a Twitter guy.
Henry Noel Jr.
Henry Noel Jr.
Yeah.
And same thing on LinkedIn.
Yes.
Facebook is kind of enough. All right, so just LinkedIn and Twitter, definitely follow him there, and then keep your eyes out, of course, for Haiti VIP in the future.
Yes.
We'll definitely be following that because that project is going to be very, very instrumental to the country, and I'm giving you a big hand clap and kudos for taking that big step, you and your partners, on even pushing such an initiative in Haiti. Is much, much needed. And that really gives a lot of entrepreneurs, especially in the room, the ones that are part of the Bell Initiative, especially the ones that are just working every day, to know that, look, there are some people out there that are looking at investing in Haiti. Despite what other people might be saying or what the media might be saying, there is some hope for them to carry out their dreams and stay committed to the country. Because I think that there are some people who get demotivated or unmotivated because they feel like, well, I'm in Haiti, and the world is telling them that nobody really wants to do anything here, right? But it's quite contrary. And it's just that I think there's not a lot of exposure, which is one of the things that I want to do, is bring more exposure to the opportunities in Haiti, right? I've seen so many entrepreneurs, and I run into them every day, talk to them every day, that are just doing amazing things, and I believe they are going to make Haiti the developed nation that we envision. So I have no doubt in my mind, and I want to make sure that we are here to keep pushing you guys, especially us over here in the diaspora in the U.S. The ones that's awake, like Henry and myself and others, we're definitely going to be the ones pushing and riding that wave, because when it happens, everybody's going to wish that they would have saw it like we see, have that vision that we actually have for Haiti. So get in touch with Henry if you need to. Follow him on Twitter, follow him on LinkedIn. To catch a replay of this video recording, follow us on YouTube, Bell Initiative, or just follow us at Bell Initiative on Facebook and on Instagram. And of course, you can also just sign up for our newsletters if you want to kind of get email notifications about what we have coming up. And Henry, I'm gonna have to bring you back on, man. This is a hot topic. People are asking questions, and I think it's a good topic in terms of education too, because you're really helping shed some light on how we should look at things, how we should look at investors. And I hope it snaps some people back into reality, like, oh, maybe I don't want to get involved with investors now. I might be able to front my own money, because, like you said, it's expensive when you go the investment route, and you're tying yourself to a partner. You have to make sure that you're ready to do that, and you're structured to actually even take on any kind of investment. So I think you're really helping to educate the crowd. So I'm gonna bother you and see if I can get you back on in a few months or weeks. And definitely for the Bell Initiative program, if we can get it going in Haiti. So thank you again, Henry. Thank you everybody for joining in. Make sure you follow and ask questions. And till then, see you next time. Thanks, guys. Bye. Let me stop live streaming, and we'll do that. We usually do a little after party after we get off live. People start coming in. All right, so I stopped. And let me stop the recording officially. Bye, everybody.